Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
So what would you like to talk about today?
Basketball's got a big one tonight at home. Quick turnaround. Get a Saturday game there.
Well, actually, this is the way the schedule should be.
It should be. Yep. It's just adjusted back, and then obviously
it should be Wednesday, Saturdays as often as possible, with an occasional game on Tuesday, Thursday, whatever, because of TV.
TV, absolutely. Yep.
So, they played tonight. There's been a lot of talk about why don't you play the freshmen more. I understand that if you're not at practice and you only see the games, I get that. Part of it is, look, Mike's trying to win every game. And this is not an experiment. And college basketball and college sports in general has changed. This is not the 1990s any longer, where you can start looking to the future because you think you're going to have these players for maybe even 5 years, depending on circumstances. That doesn't happen very often anymore. And I understand the sentiment. There have been certain circumstances that entered into Mike not playing them as often. I'm not going to get into that. It's mostly just the ability to completely catch on to what you're doing, have it be natural, instinctive, and so forth. And it has to happen on the practice floor. And one player in particular was hurt. I think everyone knows Miles Goodman was hurt and missed a lot of time. I mean, I'm talking missed training camp, all the critical teaching time. So he's had to really pick things up on the fly. Hudson Ward got hurt and was out for a chunk of time. And so, he's back now. But, again, when you miss a chunk of time, you miss a chunk of practice, which means you miss, Dom Stewart has come along, I think, further than any of them. So he's had more time of late, and I thought in the West Coast he played pretty well. He had 7 against UCLA, and I thought played well at both ends. He had 13 against USC and played, I think, well at both ends. And Javin Carter has been behind Ace. And you can be as fed up as you want at Ace, but he gives you the best chance to win the game. Well, that's about what it comes down to. Who gives you the best chance to win? So let's get into a couple of factors with this team. We've already talked about the depth on the team to begin with. It's not the same depth that they had in July. It's not the same depth they had in the preseason. And we know about what happened with Puff and the dominoes that go with it. I've already explained that part. The two areas that I'm looking at with them are the middle eight and the end, and not the end the way you think. Okay, I don't go to the Dick Vitale school of you always have to call a timeout. No, sometimes you have to. Right? But if you think it's really important to show everybody you're doing something, what do you think practice is for? What, you think they don't put 12 seconds up on the clock in practice and run plays?
Sure.
Like all the time? Okay.
And you look at some of the great coaches of all time. They trusted their team. Where, look, I'm not going to call a timeout here.
Well, exactly.
You guys have been in this spot. I've trusted that you can solve this situation without me intervening. If I have to, I have to.
How do you think Villanova won the national championship
Absolutely.
in the last shot?
Didn't call Jay Wright, didn't call timeout.
Right. Now, are there times you need to? Sure. But that's not what I want to talk about. Okay? It's like, I'm trying to talk basketball here. I'm not trying to do like lowest common denominator discussions. I mean, seriously. Penn State's been losing games because of the middle eight and free throws. And not free throws the way, just give me a shot here to explain what's going on. The middle eight, let's start with that. Penn State has had leads against Minnesota by 10 and Washington by 13. And in the final 4 minutes of the first half, those leads have been whittled down each time to 4. So the opposition goes into the locker room feeling pretty good about itself. They've climbed back into the game and so forth. Now, the opening 4 minutes of the second half, can you resurrect yourself and push it back out again, or do they continue their momentum and putting pressure on you? And what's happened is they've cut it down to 4 in that first 4 minute segment, and they've kept the pressure on in the opening 4 of the second half instead of Penn State opening up and making 4, 10, making 10, 15, and so forth. So the middle eight and the ability to close the first half and then garner momentum to start the second half has set up how games have played out. Now let's get to free throw shooting. Penn State is 82% this season in the final 4 minutes of close games at the free throw line. Really good. Here's the issue. Think of all the close games they've had. And I keep this stat. This is not a stat you're going to find in the game notes or anything like that. I personally keep the stat. And I keep track of it from day one all the way through. All these close games Penn State's played, they only have 44 free throw attempts in the final 4 minutes with the game on the line. I'm not talking about the close games. Penn State's played all these close games, right? They're only averaging 4 free throw attempts in the final 4 minutes of close games. Now, some of it is they're not getting fouled. Some of it is they're going in there not getting fouled and making a bad decision. And some of it is they are getting fouled and that they're not getting to the line. Okay? It's like all three things. You have closers on this team. DeMarco Dunn's 91%. He's missed 3 all season. Ace Baldwin leads the Big Ten at 93%. He's your point guard. Zach Hicks has now hit, I think, something like 37 of his last 41 or something like that at the free throw line. He's now up at 80%. You have closers on this team. Yet the closers aren't getting a sniff of the free throw line when they can put the game away. And I find, again, sometimes it's a fact that you're not playing well and you turn it over. No free throw. Sometimes you go in there, they don't foul you, you make a bad play, or you have to kick it out and get another shot and you miss it. Other times they've gone in there and they have been fouled and they haven't gone to the line. Right? I find that part has baffled me. The few number of free throw attempts Penn State's had in the final 4 minutes of games, because they've got guys that can hit free throws. And I mean, it's not as if you're a team that is shooting in the 60s in the final 4 minutes and it's killing you closing games, or it's an adventure every time you go to the free throw line and you're like, okay. They've got the right guys to close games. And when they've been in that spot, Penn State is 82% at the line. They're 8 points higher at the line in the final 4 minutes compared to their season number. And those stats have combined the middle 8 where they've taken some control in the first half. And the baffling part is Penn State has been, up until this streak, a better second half scoring team than first half scoring team. But in this streak, they have been a better first half scoring team. But the trouble starts in the final 4 minutes. You're up 13, now it becomes 4. You want to take 13, make it 15, make it 20. Okay? You're up 10. You want to make 10, 15 to close the half. Instead, 10 becomes 4. Okay? And then, can you blunt their momentum and recapture it yourself at the start of the second half? Penn State hasn't done that. So the middle 8 has hurt them. And the lack of free throw attempts in the final 4 minutes when the game has been on the line. Because, look, 9 times out of 10, you're in the bonus at that point. Minimum bonus. You may not be in the double bonus. You could be, but at minimum, you're in the bonus. And they're not getting to the free throw line. And it's not as if they're not trying to get the ball into the lane. So those are two things that I look at. Now, there are other things, keeping the ball in front of them defensively. That's a big one for obvious reasons. And we've talked about that before. But I just talked about 2 areas nobody talks about. I haven't heard anybody talk about it. Hear anybody talk about these things? No, of course not. Right? It's too simple to say whether somebody should call a timeout at the end. I look at the totality of the game. How did you get to the end? How did you get to the end? See, I'm a big believer that, like, football 60 minutes, there could be, on play 7, could be a play where you sit back and go, oh, boy.
Sure.
All right? And I'm a big believer in basketball that when you break the game down, you can win a game or lose a game in 3 areas. You can win the game in the first half. You can lose the game in the first half. Things I don't hear people sitting around there where they're talking around the table about, like sports, right? Or because I've done so many games in my life. You can then win a game before the under 8 in the second half. You can also lose the game. And obviously the one that everybody concentrates on, which is the most obvious one, you can win or lose the game at the end. That's why when we're doing the game, Dick and I always talk about, here it is, the pivotal part of the game. It's the under 12 to the under 8. Because once you're done with the under 8, it tells you what position you are in. Do you really have a shot realistically? Are you in position to overtake them? Or are you the team that's in front and you're in a position to close? Because now there's 7.5 minutes to go. And that's why where you are at the under 12 versus the under 8, when you're done with it, that's why it's the pivotal part of the game. And Penn State has to do a better job in the middle 8. And then when they're in a position to win, they need to get opportunities at the free throw line. And some of it is their doing. And some of that is sometimes I look at it and go, looked like contact to me there. And there have been times where I've looked at a replay. I've looked at a replay on something, and I thought maybe there was contact. And I looked at the replay, and there wasn't. So I'm not being unfair here. Right? This is not one of those, oh, he's complaining about officiating. No, there have been a couple of times earlier. It was on Saturday, for example. Ace went in there, and Ace was like, oh, And we looked at the replay, and we're like, he wasn't fouled. We're fair. We're fair about that. But I have been in times where I've looked at it and went, There's a lot of contact in there, and the replay then justifies like, hey, you're right, there was a lot of contact in there. Why wasn't something called when you can get to the free throw line? Which, if you're the team behind, it gives you a chance to get some free points with the clock stopped. Or if you're the team ahead, you can create more of a margin. And those are two areas, because they've had so many close games. Why haven't they won more when it's been that close? And it's more than Mike calling a timeout. Right? You can debate that all you want, and you're neither right nor wrong. Okay? Okay? If you think Mike should call a timeout, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. If you think Mike should play on like he's been playing on, you're not wrong there either. It's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, depending on the personnel you have out there. I would think if he has a freshman point guard out there, right, he probably calls a timeout and sets something, right? Because it's based on your personnel and what they're capable of doing in the moment. Okay? Yeah. We've got the play call. We know what we want to call, and you go for it, and you get them going back on their heels or whatever. Or there are times you sit back and go, you know what, we're not organized enough, call timeout. Okay. But how do you get to that play? That's the part that nobody seems to want to talk about. How do you get to that play? They want to talk about losing locker rooms and things like that. You say, well, I'm around it every day. Sorry, but you might not be right there. But that's okay. You're not there every day. I got that. Spouting off your opinion like you know it as a fact. Now that's a problem, right? Guessing and speculating, that's fine because you're openly guessing. It's fine. You're not there every day. But I'm a big believer that the whole 40 minutes counts. How do you get to that final 30 seconds? What's the journey to get there? So where is it happening? Well, for me, it's happening in the middle eight more often than not. Have to do a better job of closing. And you have to be able to not accept prosperity. You have to go out and go, you know what? Okay, let's knock this team out. And we're going to do it by running our stuff. Don't run down and take a silly shot because you're up by 13, which they didn't do, by the way. They didn't run down and take it. But there's too often. I'll give you the example. Rutgers. Rutgers is climbing back in the game against Penn State. And they were doing it. They're working the clock, getting it to Ace Bailey, working the ball, getting it to Bailey, working the ball, getting it to Bailey. Then they're finally making a move on Penn State. And one of the guys came down and just jacked up a shot from 25 feet. Right? And I specifically said in the broadcast to Dick, I said, circle that one. Because the shot made no sense. It made no sense. And Penn State then went on the run and closed them out after that shot. Because the entire Rutgers bench was like, what are you doing? Because you had a guy out there who doesn't know how to play. Yeah. And so you look at the totality of the game. And like when I pointed, I remember there was a point guard brunch, and I was sitting there and I said, so let me ask you guys, what do you think the pivotal play of the game was again when they beat Rutgers? He talked about this. I said, no, it was the shot that kid took. As soon as he took that shot, the entire Rutgers bench was like, oh my God. And Penn State went down and scored right away. I said, that was the game. I said, that was the moment where like somebody did something out of character and did something on the basketball side stupid. And they went away from being smart. And it cost them. It was a 5-point swing. Okay? Now it happened with like 6 or 7 minutes to go in the game. So again, because it's not the end of the game, people don't think about that. There's a totality of the game. That's why in football we talk about, hey, look, there are 5, 6 critical plays in every game. Let's say 5 to 7. Well, it's not always the end. It's not always the end. Okay, let's look at the Orange Bowl. You know what I think one of the critical plays was? When Angeli fumbled the football at the end of the first half, and Abdul Carter, who was trying to play on one arm, jumps on it, and it looked like he had a real shot at it and didn't get it. If they get that, Notre Dame has no momentum going into the locker room. None. 0. And it's 10-0. Okay? Now, we know what happened at the end, but there are 5 to 7 plays in every game. Play 8 could be the one like, oh, boy. That doesn't look good. Penn State's playing Ohio State. One of the key plays of that entire game was the touchdown pass to Igbuka in the first half.
Yep.
Okay? Which then eventually set up what we saw at the 3-yard line at the end of the half. What set up at the end of the game at the 3-yard line. It set that up. Right? Sure. Kind of steadied their ship when they were down 10-0.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep. Nothing with the turnover, too, when Howard fumbled the ball. I thought that could have swung momentum in a big way, too.
Right. So there's so many plays that happen in a game and sequences that happen. Right? You can win a game in the first half. You can win it in the first 12 minutes of the second half. You can win it in the last minute. There's 3 different times you can win a game. The part that's baffling is when you tell people you can win games in the first half. Huh? No, it's always the end. No, not really. Okay? And then you set up what your positioning is by what you do in the first 39 minutes. And that middle 8 has been killing Penn State. They've got to do a better job of closing halves and starting second halves. I mean, need to. Now, Nebraska comes in. Bacto will not be able to play tonight. Oh, who is that? Who's that guy? It's like, okay, like know the opponent, maybe? Give it a shot. Leads the team in rebounding. Okay, starting center. No. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you know what people came out to me yesterday? Who's that guy? I'm like, what do you mean who's that guy? He's the leading rebounder. It's their starting center. Now, is he a 20-point-a-game guy? No, but like,
still going to impact the game.
Yeah, you know, I mean, he's 7 points and he's 6 boards a game. He leads them in rebounding. Okay, so Andrew Morgan's going to start. Good player, a little bit different player. Bryce Williams is a very, very talented player. He's third in the conference in scoring at better than 19 a game. Had an okay game against Northwestern, but down the stretch. Now, basically what they did against Northwestern got up on them by 20. Nebraska was able to get a run going midway through the second half. Remember I tell you about how games, you can win games? That's where they won the game. They got themselves right back in it. And then down the stretch, they made sure Williams had the basketball. And what did Williams do? Oh, he went to the free throw line and banged home one after another until the last one. He deliberately missed the last one. They're up 4. He deliberately missed it, made them grab a rebound, which by grabbing the rebound started the clock. Right? And Sam Hoiberg, knows exactly what his dad needs him to do. He's a good defender. He's a just hard-nosed basketball player. Runs the show really well. Wooster has been up and down for them. I think Gary's really good. Mm-hmm. He can step out and hit threes. He can rebound. And Gary transferred in a couple of years ago from Alabama. And he's just a good, solid college basketball player. The bench is good. But again, Morgan's now starting, so that changes their bench dynamic. Gavin Griffiths, who transferred from Rutgers to Nebraska, has been in and out of the lineup. He did play against Northwestern the other day. Aaron Eulis, who transferred from Iowa, has been okay off the bench. I thought he'd be more of a contributor for them this season. Yeah, and he hasn't been. I know he had to sit out all of last year. That's because of something that happened off the court that had to be investigated. So I know he sat out last year. He hasn't shot the ball well. But Bryce Williams, good player. I mean, he had 21. It wasn't his best day, but he still had 21 because he's a scorer. He's a scorer. He's just a really good player. Really good. So Nebraska slumped in the middle, resurrected themselves, playing their best basketball since early December when they beat Creighton early in the year. And they're playing well right now. They won 68-64 in a day where they looked like they absolutely didn't have it. But they eventually what they did was they ran Northwestern out of gas. Northwestern doesn't have a lot of depth right now. And they ran Northwestern out of gas in the game. And it made you could just see Northwestern in the last 10 minutes. Each possession they looked a little more tired. Each possession they looked a little more tentative. Because I just think as the game was going, they logged so many minutes they were losing their legs. And couldn't hit any outside shots, and that really hurt them. So that's tonight. That will be at 6:30 this evening. It's let's see if Penn State can get one here. We all know what position they're in. I got that. It's not the position you want to be in. You're sitting there on Saturday, January 4th, and they've knocked down the press box. Like, by the way, you left a lot of your own personal stuff in there.
I know. I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
It's gone.
All gone. I'll tell you.
So I'm sitting there. So January 4th, they knocked down the press box. It's snowing.
Mm-hmm.
I get in my car. I drive to Philadelphia. At that point, Penn State is a 12-2 basketball team and 2-1 in the Big Ten. Right now, at that point, they would have been maybe a 9 or a 10 seed in the NCAA tournament, probably 10. But they're in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now the idea is if you can be a team that would go 8 and 9 in your next 17 games and be 10 and 10 because there's so many quad one opportunities in the Big Ten. If you go 8 and 9, you finish up 10 and 10, you're going to get in.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
You're going to be in a position where people are talking about you getting in.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, are you a first 4 team? Are you a whatever?
Yeah.
But if you go 8 and 9 from that point, you're going to get in.
And you factor in you dominate Purdue in the beginning of the year, too. I mean, that's obviously something they're going to look at.
Well, there would have been other opportunities to beat other teams of that quality along the way. And then they lost the Indiana game. And I'll be honest with you. I think Indiana is good, but that's what they are. They're good.
Yeah.
They're not They're not very good. They're not great. They're good. And I know Indiana just beat Michigan State. I got that. Michigan State had a big one over Purdue last night. But Penn State couldn't shoot. From the free throw line, couldn't hit any free throws, couldn't hit any threes. Everything they're getting were twos. That can only carry you so far in today's game. You're like, and they went through that shooting slump at the wrong time, and then when they went to Michigan State, Puff got hurt, and then all of a sudden the dominoes of that on a team that was thin to begin with. So I'll address this now. Usually I have a pretty good handle on what kind of team Penn State's going to have by watching the preseason and getting a handle on it. Football, basketball, because when you're there every day, you get a pretty good read about what people can and can't do. So let's go back to when Mike took the job. When Mike took the job, I was directly honest about this in doing this. And I said, I really don't know what kind of team he has. And that was after watching all the summer workouts. I watched the preseason a year ago, and I said, I really don't know what kind of team he has. And even in watching games, it was like kind of some days good, some days, I just didn't have a real feel for anything personnel-wise. Not what Mike was doing, or Jamal, or Brent, or Joe, or Jimmy. Not what they were doing. I just couldn't get a handle on how the personnel was understanding what they wanted them to do. Some guys got it. And to be honest with you, I'll give you a guy that would have been interesting to see if he came back this year, but he couldn't because he was out of eligibility. But Qudus Wahab. Q finally got what was going on with this. He became a good player. He had some limitations, but he became a good player for them. I mean, really liked him a lot. He and Yannick are different kinds of players. But I never really could get, and then all of a sudden they caught fire after, we all know Kanye left and, dismissed, left, whatever you want to say. And the team gelled and played well in the final part of last season. I was like, okay, all right. When I saw this team this summer, I thought, this is a better team than last year. Right? Really thought that. Preseason, they had a couple of injuries in the preseason. I'm not going to get into who. But I'll say this, there were periods of time they didn't have their entire starting lineup together. How about that? And then as the season drew closer, they finally got everybody back. And they got off the start they got off to. And I thought they were an NCAA tournament team. I really did. I thought they would finish. I kept telling Dick said they could win the league. I said, I think they could be in somewhere in the top 8, let's just say 7 or 8. Well, 7 or 8 gets you in.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And did I see this coming? No, I did not. I absolutely did not see this coming. Did I see all the close losses? Close losses happen. All right. Close wins happen.
Yeah.
I mean, Michigan is existing on close wins right now. Right? That's why when you look at the 16 that was released, this is what's galling about it. 3 Big Ten teams are in that 16 that the NCAA, the selection committee, released as their current top 4 seeds in each region. And there are 3 Penn State opponents there. Wisconsin, they haven't played yet. Purdue, they beat. And Michigan, they led them with 90 seconds to go in their court and lost by 4. Well, you can't be that awful. Okay? But I didn't see all the close losses. So for perspective, now let's do the perspective thing. 2009, Penn State wins the NIT. They've got almost everybody back from that team. All right. Here we go. 4 starters. Here we go. They go out and they win 10 games in 2010. Did I see that coming? No. But then you looked at it. Games decided by 6 points or less. Penn State was 3-14. The next year they made the NCAA tournament. Games decided by 6 points or less, 11-3. Margin that close. And sometimes it's that circumstance. Michigan is on this. They're awesome. They're great. They're in first place. Well, Michigan is a very good basketball team. They're very good. But they've had the ability to win all these games by 2, 3, 4 points, right? Including Saturday. They won Sunday. Sunday they won at Ohio State. Same story. What was the final? 3 points. It's happening over and over again with them. They have a really good center in Golden. I like him a lot. All right. like him a lot. And when you look at Penn State has been not winning these games. They're 1-6 in games decided by 5 or less. They've got 7 losses by 6 or less, which, by the way, is tied for number 1 in the nation with Northwestern. Okay. So let's see. Michigan, when's the next time Michigan plays here? They're going to play Michigan State on Friday night. So Michigan has been winning close games. Now, they've had a couple close losses. Right? But you look at their last 5 games. 1 by 3. 1 by 4. 1 by 3. 1 by 2. 1 by 3. They've won 5 games in a row. Okay? And they've won by a total of 3, 5, 8, 12, 15 points. It's remarkable. Michigan State has lost by 6, lost by 2, then they won by 8, lost by 4, won by 14. So the last 3 losses Michigan State has had have been by 6, 2, and 4. They're 2-5 in their last, or 2-3 in their last 5 games. And they've lost those games by a total of 11 points. It is interesting when you see these dynamics on these teams. I mean, unbelievable. Okay? What they've done. Okay? Michigan, January. Okay? Won big over USC, so they won that game by 11. They beat UCLA. It was a great West Coast trip. They won that game by 18. Okay? Then they lost to Minnesota by 3. They beat Northwestern by 4. They beat Penn State by 4 and got clobbered by Purdue. Purdue's the last team to beat them, and Purdue clobbered them. You're like, this is the seed. Beat Wisconsin by 3, beat Iowa by 2, lost to Arkansas by 2, lost to Oklahoma by 1. So they've lost a couple of them along the way. Okay? All these games that they've won by the narrowest of margins, haven't won them all. But that's the difference between being at the top and being at the bottom. Right? Mm-hmm. You say they're both 500, they're both like in that 7 or 8 spot right now. It's like, it's crazy. But they do a better job in the middle 8. They do a better job of closing games. And not only that, they've got the confidence now in every game that's close. They have the confidence to win the games now because they've done it so many times. They believe they're going to do it. When you are fighting confidence, because, look, you're not winning. You're not winning. So what does that do to your confidence? All right? And you're out there fighting it the entire time. I asked Mike, I talked with Mike for a while yesterday, and I asked him about, I said, is it possible to play loose and just go play? It's easy to say, but it's hard to do when you're not winning.
Right. Now, any coach you talk to over time, they explain how much tougher it gets to say you're almost there. You're almost there because you're losing games from a confidence perspective. You're not there, and I think that's a major part of it, and that's any sport without a shadow of a doubt. When you get that win, it feels like you get over the hump a little bit. It feels like that confidence goes up. It feels like the belief goes up. But until that happens, no. It's very difficult for, and again, I have not been in their spot. I really have not. But for any coach I have talked to, they've talked about how difficult it is.
You've pretty much lived it every day.
Well,
No,
sure.
I'm just kidding.
As a fan.
Just kidding. I'm kidding.
As a fan of the player,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Maybe a CYO basketball as a coach, but not at their level.
I'm joking around with you. It's just, it is, and that's what happens when you lose confidence.
Sure.
All right, you're playing okay, and you're feeling okay, and all of a sudden, like, the other team gets back-to-back baskets. Now, if you're a team that's winning all the time, you're like, yeah, so what? Right? If you're a team that's not winning all the time, they get back-to-back baskets, you're like, uh-oh, here we go. It's that kind of mentality.
It works the opposite way. It works both ways. I think, well, first of all, I think to me, obviously, when you're scoring, that defense gets motivated. Obviously, vice versa. I think that's from an in-game perspective. But in terms of an overall, I hate to use the cliche big picture, but I mean to use it. I think you talked about the losing part of it, the flip side of it, where you're winning so much, and Gino Auriemma was a master at this. You forget how hard it is to win at times, and I think UConn women's basketball was that way for a long time. Forgot how difficult it was to win games and lost and got on a losing streak. Didn't know how to really react to it in a lot of ways because I think you sometimes, I don't want to say lose your way, but you lose the focus of realizing how difficult it is to win games sometimes. And winning's not easy.
That's the part where I think some fans have been jaded a bit.
Absolutely.
Not all. I mean, some have been jaded a bit by the ESPN era of highlights.
Sure.
It's not the fans' fault. And
No,
it's not the fans' fault, and it's not ESPN's fault. ESPN's job when they do SportsCenter or to do halftime updates and things like that is to show you the spectacular plays. That's their job. But it makes it seem like it's, boy, I saw all these dunks. I saw all these alley-oops. I saw all these behind-the-back passes. God, the game looks easy.
Yeah.
Like, these guys make that game look easy. God, winning is so hard.
Absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
And that's why one thing, and I will criticize part of the fan base for this. I never like when I hear, like, Penn State wins a game over somebody. You know, it's a good game, the whole deal. X sucks. They're going, what, that means your win wasn't that good? Oh, they're not that good. Well, how about they are really good, and guess what? You were better.
Yeah, and that's also X's biggest game sometimes.
Right?
When they're looking at you as their Super Bowl.
But I'm saying that, like, don't look at it. Oh, yeah, we did it. We won. They stink. Like, no, how about, like, you played great, and the win looks really good because you beat somebody good.
Yep. Absolutely.
Oh, Boise State's no good. Like, no, they're really good. SMU's not good. SMU's not good. It's like, what are you talking about? What are you doing? Grow up. It's hard to win.
Absolutely. Now, do you have the advantage because they weren't necessarily in that moment, like SMU? Sure, but that's not doesn't mean they're bad. That means they learn from that and they build it to next year, and they build a team, and then build a program consistently as big as they've been.
Yeah,
so that's no doubt about it, and it works the same way with recruiting. I think people look at the highlights, people look at the videos, and say, "Wow,"
which is not their fault.
No.
It's not ESPN's fault. It's not the fans' fault at all. But they sure have made the game seem like it's one big highlight reel of life, and you're like. And then all of a sudden you watch the game like, well, there aren't many plays like that in the game.
There's so many times, and obviously, James Franklin will make a recruiting visit. He'll go watch a guy play at Altoona or whatever. And, well, okay, you just watch that on YouTube. You don't see the pick six on YouTube. Where, how does that quarterback react? Mm-hmm. You don't see the missed tackle or the blown coverage. How does that cornerback react? I think that those are the biggest things to me
Right.
that help make a player even better. And that's where you decide, and that's where you really look at what makes players good, what makes players great, what makes players elite. And that's absolutely, unfortunately, like you said, it's not the fault of anybody.
No.
But those things you're not seeing those things when you look at the videos.
It is absolutely not the fault of the fan. It is absolutely not the fault of ESPN because they're just doing their job. But, boy, they sure do give the perception that it's easy to play.
Yeah.
Like, sure. Yeah. And, well, that's part of the culture we're in today. Mm-hmm. That's part of the culture. Just looked at the thing, the Pirates Key Editions.
They brought in
No.
Yeah, I'm trying to...
Spencer Horowitz, Caleb Ferguson, and Tommy Pham.
There we go. Now, Pham. I was trying to figure who they brought in.
Pham is a good...
Yeah. That's what I was. I remember it was a former Spike, and I couldn't think of who it was. There it was, Tommy Pham.
Pirates payroll in 2024 is $87 million.
Good Lord.
They're one of the few teams in baseball where their payroll is less this year, $83 million. Right? It's like, really?
They had their Pirate Fest in June at the Lawrence Center, and.
No, it was December or January. It wasn't in June.
January. That's what I meant to say last month. Yeah. In January.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't have it during the season.
Right now it's February.
Yeah, January. Had it last month.
Okay.
But
it's the 19th.
They have it every January.
It's not June. It's the 19th of the month.
Yes. Good Lord. January is where they had it. They got Andrew McCutcheon's name wrong on the nameplate.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Again, it goes back.
My Lord.
It goes back to what I talked about with the Terrence Shannon jersey thing.
No.
Right? And I brought that up in my class. I said, look, that is the perfect example of take care of the little things, the big things take care of themselves. The big thing was just raising it up.
Yeah.
Just raising the banner. That was the big thing.
Yeah.
Well, if you took care of the little things, like, okay, let's just run this through. Let's just make sure we got it right, the whole thing. But they obviously didn't take care of the little things.
Nope.
Well, same thing with McCutcheon. And then, look, the owner of the team, okay, Bob Nutting, doesn't show up at this thing.
That's terrible.
Well, guess what? He needs to show up at that
Sure
thing.
Does. Absolutely.
Because right now, it's his credibility that is being called into question by the fan base.
Yeah.
Well, when you're the one whose credibility is being called into play, your credibility and your integrity, you're the one that needs to sit up there and explain, here's the philosophy of the franchise, because guess what? You are my customers. Right? You don't shield yourself and have somebody go out and answer for you.
Right.
You don't do that.
Yeah.
Right?
No, and that's what they did so many times. How many times you saw Dave Littlefield take the tough spots? Frank Coonley take the tough spots. You saw it many times with this franchise.
I mean, okay, they are only doing what you told them to do.
Absolutely.
It's your obligation, since you're the one where the final say has to go to. I mean, it is not as if Ben Cherington went out and swung and missed on Juan Soto.
Right.
Okay? They made no offer to Juan Soto. Why? Because they had no shot of getting Juan Soto. So why waste my time and energy on that? But when you're going from an $87 million payroll to 83, wait a minute. Isn't it supposed to be going the other direction?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, and that includes your own guys.
Well, I know.
And the big part of it.
Now, part of it is, too, like your best player is Paul Skeens, and he's on a rookie contract, so he's not up there. But, that'll be the next one. Will they keep him? Yeah. But you can't sit there and have something like this where the person they are calling into question is not – who's the CEO of the team? Is it Williams?
I think it is.
Right. Right. He's like the COO or whatever. Okay. He's not calling the shots. Ben Cherington sitting there, he's not calling the shots.
Right.
And Derek Shelton absolutely
sure
is not calling the shots.
No.
Okay? But they've got to answer for this guy.
Mm-hmm.
You get up there and you take the questions.
Sure.
And if you're Greg Brown emceeing it, okay, your job is to make sure, hey, ask any question you want, just do it with respect.
Sure.
In other words, don't yell at them,
Mm-hmm.
don't accuse them of anything or whatever like that. Ask questions.
Yeah.
You can preface your question with a comment, but then ask a question
Absolutely.
that, so he can answer it.
Yeah.
And, right, in other words, there's no need to shield anything. Shield them from what? These are your paying customers.
100%.
All right. And I took my family to a Pirates game. I hadn't been in a little while. I took them to the game because the Red Sox were playing there, so I wanted to see the Red Sox play. And half the ballpark were Red Sox fans. Okay, that's not a surprise. Yeah. Just like it'd be, 2/3 would be Yankees fans when they come to town.
Yeah,
right.
Or the Sixers back in the day. Same thing.
Or there's the curiosity of, hey, I want to see Aaron Judge.
Sure.
All right, but there was 19,000 people there, and this game was on a Sunday. Now I realize the weather was chilly that day. It wasn't the best weather day. All right. No, I'm just being fair here.
Still, that is your one visit.
Right.
If you're one Red Sox visit.
Right, but I'm trying to be fair here.
Yeah.
The conditions it wasn't the prettiest day going. Right. It wasn't raining or anything, but it was a little bit windy and it was chilly out. And we're all out there in jackets, sitting at the game. We had a blast at the game. Right. It was fun. The staff was great. Couldn't have been any more welcoming, helpful, everything. So, like, the people you see face-to-face were great. But the product on the field, right, I finally looked over and I said, that team is bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How many years they didn't even, it took them till pretty much the last hour to sell out opening day. You don't have you don't have fans believing in you on opening day. You don't have fans believing in you.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, I know when I went to the Penguins game, they eventually sold it out. But I know the Penguins have had trouble selling out games this year. They're not winning.
No.
They're an older team, kind of the Penguins are a mishmash between youth and old. They don't have a lot of budding, terrific players in the middle. That would be the next group to take over. They don't have that right now. Because they played Ottawa, and Brady Tkachuk, terrific player. Jake Sanderson, the defenseman. I think Sanderson's going to be the one that steps up into the spot. I think Quinn Hughes and Jake Sanderson are going to both be playing. Sanderson played on Monday night for the U.S. Right, and he's another Ottawa player, really good. And the former Flyer there, Giroux, was on there. He was the number 2 star in the game, and he played really well, right? But that's what they are. Those are the younger players. Sanderson's a younger player. Brady Tkachuk's a younger player. They had the youth on their team, and they just totally outplayed them, beat them 5-0. It's just one day. I mean, Ottawa had been slumping coming into the game, but they're not selling out either. And the Steelers are an okay team.
It almost feels like the Denny Green phrase. You are you thought you. They thought they were. They are who we thought they were. I think that's where the Steelers are at right now.
Well, the Steelers keep stealing enough games.
Yeah.
Where they end up 9-8.
Yeah.
And you're like, you're not going anywhere.
No. And the fans realize that. And the fans are seeing that clear as day.
Now, the fans of Pittsburgh have been, I know we're going over here, have been incredibly spoiled by the Steelers over the years.
Sure. And the Penguins.
Right. Well, but this is a little bit different, okay? The NHL is not set up for you to slump and come back.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's okay. Yep. If you're able to sign Crosby long term, Geno Malkin long term, Chris Letang long term, people like that. Okay, you're not
in the NFL.
Right.
Yeah.
In the NFL, the way it is quote supposed to work you have like 3 really good seasons, then maybe you have to fall back a year or two and then build back up and get 3 really good seasons again. Okay? Unless you're the Jacksonville Jaguars. And okay, or the Cleveland Browns. Although the Browns had a couple playoff seasons.
Yeah,
right?
the Browns
even won a playoff game.
Yep.
The Steelers have gone through this really good stretch for over 20 years now. That's not supposed to happen. Like the Brady-Belichick deal in New England, that is not supposed to happen. You're not supposed to have 20 years of sustained excellence like that, where you're really good all the time. You know, the team to beat almost every year. You're supposed to fall back. Now, the Patriots have fallen back, and they've fallen back in a big way.
Sure.
Okay? But that's where they're supposed to be, based on how the league is designed. Your draft picks, your schedules, and so forth. Okay? And you're sitting there with the first overall pick in the draft. You're also going to play 5 other last-place teams, the way the schedule is set up. You're supposed to play 5 last-place teams from last year. 3 in your own conference, 1 from the division that you're designated to play in the other conference, and also your 17th game is the comparable other conference last-place team. So you're going to play 5. It's nearly a third of your schedule. Okay? That's allows you to, quote, bounce back faster. Combination of draft picks and schedule. The Steelers have bypassed all that. They've hung in. It is amazing how if I had to pinpoint one spot where it was like, whoa, where they started spinning their wheels, it was when Ryan Shazier got hurt. They've been fighting to replace him for years, and they never have. They even traded on draft day, which they rarely did, to move up to get Devin Bush at 10 or whatever it was, right? Which is completely out of character. It's like when the Pirates made the trade for Chris Archer, and they dealt Tyler Glasnow and Austin Meadows.
Yeah.
I talked to Frank Coonley about that. I was at a Pirates game, and Archer was pitching, and I was up in one of the boxes. And Frank came in specifically because, Frank and I became friends over a period of time. And so the two of us were just sitting up there, and he says, Steve, we did something out of character. He says, we made that trade. He said, we thought Archer would really help us. He says, but we did something. He said, we deviated from the formula.
Mm-hmm.
We felt the formula was working, but we thought we could accelerate it by doing the trade.
Sure.
He says, and we made a mistake.
Yep. When you get to the playoffs, that's going to happen. That pressure, you feel the pressure, I think, a lot more when you are in those playoffs and you don't ultimately win.
So the Steelers have been drafting in that 20 to 27 spot almost every year. And that's every round. Okay, that's just not everybody's, they're getting the 23rd pick of the first round. You're getting the 23rd pick of every round. Okay? Unless there's something like, squirrely that happens or there's a trade or whatever. But you're getting the 23rd pick in every round. Every year. And are you able to steal a TJ Watt? Sure. But I don't know how much patience Steeler fans are going to have with all this because they're not used to it. Right. I think right now you've got a section of the fan base that's like, look, I'm not saying tank, but what's their quarterback situation?
Year to year, pretty much.
They can't draft one unless they draft one in the second or third round. Where is it possible to get a second and third round guy to be your starter? Well, Jalen Hurts was a second round pick. Last I checked, he was holding up a trophy on the steps of the Franklin Art Museum, right near the Rocky statue. Right, he was a second round pick.
Very unpopular second-round pick, too.
Right.
Yeah. Doug Peterson was out of town because of that.
Right.
I think he turned out all right.
Right. And, the last player in the draft, the 7th-round pick, took his team to the Super Bowl, and Brock Purdy. So, and last I heard, some 6th-round pick had success.
Yeah. Yeah, he did all right. Montana was a 3rd round.
Yeah, but I'm talking about good quarterbacks.
Good quarterbacks.
Yeah. Not the
Breeze was 2nd round, right? Yeah,
Breeze was 2nd round pick. Yeah.
Favre, same thing.
Favre was a 1st round pick, wasn't he?
Was he second?
With Atlanta?
With Atlanta? Was he 1st round?
Like the 17th pick in the draft?
Was he really?
I thought by the Falcons. Maybe. Maybe you're right. I don't know.
And he showed up. I mean, he was
drafted by the Falcons.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 'cause I remember
and Jerry Glanville didn't like him.
No, didn't like him. Didn't like Lincoln Kennedy. Both ended up doing all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember one Favre. Yeah, round 2, pick 33.
33?
Yeah.
All right. Didn't like him.
Yeah.
But, we saw Rodgers fell back.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think Justin Fields. Do you watch the games? They got a problem.
Yeah. Yep. There's a reason why the biggest quarterback gurus, who are overrated as head coaches, did not take Justin Fields.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I know.
Absolutely.
Yep. Dak Prescott's a 4.
Yeah.
Now, people may not like him, but, watch the games. Prescott's not a bad quarterback.
No, he's not the problem in that team either.
He is not a bad quarterback.
Absolutely
okay?
Not.
You can make all the fun you want about because the Cowboys aren't doing well. He's not the primary reason why.
They've had 12 running backs in 12 years. That doesn't help.
No. No. But, and he's a 4th-round pick.
Yeah.
You don't know. Sometimes the first overall pick does well. Sometimes it takes the first overall pick time. Jared Goff.
No, absolutely.
Which that is my prediction, by the way. The opening game of the season on Thursday night.
I think so, too.
Is Detroit at Philadelphia.
I think so, too.
That's why
St. Brown's already called for it, so I feel like...
That's why I said anybody who is silly enough. Oh, injuries, they're just an excuse. Excuse me, would you like to come over here and watch some tape of the Detroit Lions?
Yeah.
Okay, you want to know why? Okay, you could talk about 500 yards and 5 turnovers against Washington, but if they've got the Detroit defense of the first 2 months of the season, it ain't gonna matter. Okay, they'll beat Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I agree.
But they didn't because they didn't have the people.
Right.
They didn't have the people. All right. Okay. All right. So they want me to vote for the AP All Big Ten men's basketball team. Maybe I'll let you do that.
There you go.
Okay. Do you want to know which teams are in the Big Ten? No, I'm just just thought I'd bring it up. No. Hey, look, I speak for the audience.
That's right.
Okay, you worry me. I'll be here tomorrow.